Hello, Brendan. You told me I don't look into the camera. Well, this is Chess Book Reviews 79, and I'm looking into the camera now. And jolly good I look too. Right, a list of new subscribers, just to thank them. Pablo Bazzano, Sid, A. David, J. Webb 37, Alan Mitchell Clark, Aziz, Waba, Melindra T.M., Felipe Vasquez, and above all, Dorian Gray from Interpol. Thank you all very much indeed. And I hope you're enjoying yourself. And please stay as a member and contribute. If there's any questions, stick them down the bit at the bottom and I'll see what I can do for you. Now, I've got two books to show you. Unbelievably, I bought this in a charity shop. The lady was so enthusiastic, she came out into the street to show it to me. I couldn't quite believe her enthusiasm. They charged me, I think, probably about £2 for this book, but it has a label, a price tag of $15.99, $29.95 US dollars, so nearly $30. And it's translated by John Sugden, a very senior man in British chess. And he was at school with Ray Keane. Not that that's a recommendation, but he was. This book was published in 2008, and this is the third printing of it from 2010. Clearly, it has gone through passed through many hands, and it says Isaac Lipnitsky and his super book. So there we are. I've looked through it, and I don't think it's a super book, but I do think it's for a more advanced player, and I think it has points of interest. The center on the openings, the center and the flanks. Chapter 3, the center and the flanks again. Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is conquering the center from the flanks. Yes, fair enough. Mobilizing the pieces, chapter 5. Chapter 6, evaluating the position. Chapter 7, the concrete approach. For example, it splits. I always like books that do this, that splits out the positions into the structure of the pawns and then placing the pieces on. Boom, 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 like that. I hope you will agree with me. That's so nice. Analytical way of looking at things. Chapter 8, from critical positions to settled positions. It shows some positions where a tactical strike probably is the order of the day. Alekhine, Botvinnik, Alekhine again, Averbach. We're talking heavyweight stuff here. Very, very detailed. Look at the size of the text. Very detailed explanations going on here. This is not a book for children. This is not a book for people lowly rated or finding chess very difficult. This is for the ambitious, aspiring top amateur player. So if you're ELO less than 1900, look elsewhere. No disrespect to it or you or the man in the moon, but that is a fact of life, I'm afraid. Which is why I can't. Plans in the opening, chapter 10. Chapter 11, the initiative. Well, we all need the initiative, don't we? Chapter 12, modern gambits. And this game's of Bronstein versus Botvinnik. Smyslov versus Botvinnik. Games by the author. Botvinnik against Geller. Pillsbury against Lasker. Chapter 15. How long does a novelty last? A game by Kotov. And a game by Bronstein against Boleslavsky. And chapter 16, how is an innovation born? In other words, What's New, Mate? Appendix, some games by the author. Some more games by the author. So it continues. It has in total, I should perhaps have written this down in advance, 228 pages, but they are very, very dense. It's very dense in content. That's what it might be. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Enormous amount of games, of course, from the USSR. There we are. And also games from all eras, which I always like. I would say that this is a very interesting book to look out for if you're looking, as I say, if you're an ambitious player. Now something with a little bit more overall appeal from Everyman. The author, Cyrus, is a prolific writer, author. The Tarrasch variation of the Queen's Gambit is a fiercely counter-attacking line arising from d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, c5. In this variation, black gains free and easy piece play, but in return usually has to accept the structural weakness of an isolated queen pawn, in other words, the d pawn. In the early development of chess theory, this line was somewhat frowned upon due to the vulnerability of the IQP, in other words, the queen pawn. However, Tarrasch, after whom the opening is named, famously declared, "He who fears an isolated queen pawn should give up chess." Do not give up chess. Get this book. I'm only teasing you. Kasparov played it, yes, but only when he was a teenager. It is $18.99, 28, nearly $29 US. And it is published this year. So that's rather good. And it has 304 pages, including an index of complete games with 4 games at a glance by the newly crowned world champion Ding Liren, and has games going far back as the 19th century Amos Byrne versus Tarrasch. So there's really something. And also a game between Hoog and Korchnoi and Eigel 3, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Eigel 3 and Stockfish 14 from the internet. Those games, all the fun of the fair. Karpov versus Polgar. No love there. No love lost there. Petrosian versus Spassky. It's interesting that the Petrosian Fischer match of 1971, which at the time received less attention except by the result, has recently been dragged out and looked at in a lot more detail. I can't imagine that Spassky would mind about that or even know about it, but for all of that, I make the point. Larsen versus Kasparov from Brussels, 1987. And a game here by good old Frank Marshall playing not so good Capablanca. It says here, this is the 23rd match game. Why do I find it incredibly hard to believe that they played as many as 23 games? Did they? They really? It says they did. How odd. Well, perhaps I ought to look that up. Now you wait there. I'm looking it up. Enormous book on Capablanca here, so I think, and I also hope that this will give me the answer. I was quite wrong. Here is the 23rd game of the match. And it is the same d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, c5. And Frank played 4, c takes d5, e takes d5, and then 5, knight f3, knight c6, and then the American fianchettoed his king, bishop. So there we are. And Capablanca won in 49 moves. So there we are. There's the book, which additionally has helped me do some homework. Let's have a look at the chapter headings. The Classics, a game by Rubinstein. Oh, that's nice. There's an example of the questions are in the oblongs with heavy background. And then he goes on to explain. So if you don't want to go into it in that much detail, it won't spoil your enjoyment. You can just play over it on your board anyway, wouldn't you? But if you're working as a group or at a club, or you're training somebody, or you're taking it very, very seriously and putting a piece of paper down the page so that the text doesn't keep rushing at you, but it goes at your pace. That's a good point to make. It goes at your pace, then I would strongly recommend just a more structural approach. Dubov's variation, sidelines. Here we are with the bishop coming out to c5. This is all foreign country to me. I'm making it sound as if I know something about it. Well, I don't. There it is. See? Over here. Game between Aronian and Carlsen. Melkomian and Carlsen from the World Rapid Championships of 2019. It was a long time ago, wasn't it? And there's Dubov's variation again. That was near a different line. He brings out the bishop to c5. Blah, blah, blah. A symmetrical variation. Where, yes, all 4 knights are put on there. c6, f6, c3, f3. And the pawns are similarly on c5, d5 and e6, or c4, d4 and e3. After that, who knows what they're all straining to change. We see some exchanges. Of course we do. The young man so distinguished himself in the candidates, Prague. Game of Tiles from 1982. Oh, it's a game I would have seen played live. Not many people could claim that. Darga Nunn from Hartley Whitney, 1979. Takes me back. John Nunn. There you go. Klaus Darga. John 1. And here's another game. This is what I was saying between Petrosian and Fischer. And it's the 8th match game from their Buenos Aires match of 1971. This is more from the symmetrical variation, and this is from the next chapter was 6 Bishop G5 and related systems. I'll just show you that because I can't necessarily sum it up verbally. Look at that pawn structure. Like a bloody spider's web. Both sides. Going in for maximum complications. And let's hope a world of interest. I hope this book will bring you a world of interest as well. Lines with D takes C5. In other words, white. This is the inferior for white's 5th move version. As mentioned above, this one should not worry us at all. He is looking at that from the perspective of the black player. And here is known as a person in the white seat, playing the white pieces. Some retired player called Magnus Carlsen, never heard of him. Glenn Fleer, another game by the one and only Glenn. Talking about move orders, which is obviously important. Move order issues. Let's see what we've got here. Just as we conclude. Game by Gutmann and Sokolov from Biel into Zernan of 1985. I used to see Gutmann playing in congresses. Played in Leicester Congress. There we are, a very quick breeze through. But I'll leave you to look more in-depth reviews elsewhere, perhaps. And once again, a reminder of a Soviet classic. Thank you. This has been a rushed, no, not wholly rushed, Chess Books 79. I'm James Pratt, and you're not. Goodbye.